What's going on, guys? Welcome back to MD Fish Tanks. Very recently I cleared some space in the racking system you can see behind me, and it's made me really want to set up a tank for my Endler Guppies. I moved them recently from their old home. They need a new home. Let's get started. So yeah, basically half the tanks that you can see on this racking system here were over on this one. So I moved them across and we've got loads of space plus a really awesome wall of aquariums. I've then moved these aquariums in here. They were in my other studio, but I've brought them in here. I've just stuck some plants in them and just filled them up, which was silly of me because now I've got an empty one. But that's not the point. So I want to just be doing some fish on this side because there's all loads of shrimp on this side. We've got crystal reds, we've got blue dreams, we've got crystal blacks, yellows, and many, many more. But it's not about the shrimp today, it's about the new fish tank. So yeah, it's not exactly a huge amount to work with, but then the fish are small, so it's okay. You just have to be a little bit clever with when you're, designing your aquascape. In small tanks, it tends to work best if you use small plants. Unless you want to go for something like a feature plant. For instance, that big Amazon sword on its own with the lamp eyes there looks really, really good. I might want to do something like that in future. Maybe for this one, I don't know yet. But the first thing I do want to do is get a little base layer in there. I'm just going to use some cheap gravel to build up some height either side. So to make our base layer, I like to use like some pea gravel. It's just ordinary pea gravel. There you go. Some fine sand, or not fine to be fair, it's just sand. And also some aqua soil. I'm going to mix them all together. No sort of definite ratio or anything. Just put them in the bucket. Right, so there's three things going on here. We've got the bulky sort of gravel, just creating space, if you like, or just giving us bulk to fill out the areas. We've got the aqua soil just going to provide nutrition, and the sand sort of binding it all together. So the three combined work really well to create sort of shapes that you want as your base layer. Now you can either put sand on top of this or just loads of aqua soil. I like to use sand. I just really like sand. So the next thing I want to do now is get our rocks in, and for that I'm going to try out some dragonstone. Click subscribe. So you might have noticed there that some of the stones were trying to sort of slip down. I've put that one right in the front there just to sort of stop them moving forward. But I'm going to be putting sand in the foreground now, and that'll actually lock it all in place. So next up, I've just got smaller pieces of the dragonstone. You can just make these by smashing up the bigger bits and then just rinsing them off under a tap. Right, let me explain to you what I've done there and why I've done it. So initially I found that the big pieces, this one and this one, were making quite a sort of flat straight line, and I used the smaller pieces to bring each side out and then a little focal point in the middle, and that gives the tank a lot more sort of depth and 3D-ness, if you like. So from the top, look, you can see much more depth to it, I think. So what I want to do now is cover up or cap that soil layer in the background and just pour a load of this sand on the top of that. I just like planting into sand. I think it like grips the plants really well, and if you don't make the layer too deep, it's actually not bad for the roots at all. It'll lock everything. I just like it. I just really like it. I like soil too, but if you've got the sand and it's a nano tank, just put it on top. The other benefit, of course, is that you don't get soil migrating into the foreground, which can be really annoying. So the right side is higher than the left side, and that is because I want to make about here the focal point, and then I want the stems to come over the top of the focal point, and this side will be lower. You don't want them on the same level. It's just, you can do obviously, but I just don't think it looks as good. Now I've made the high area on the right side because obviously this side has got a tank next to it, and I think it will just lead into that tank better. I'm trying to think of like all 3 tanks in a row, but yeah, you can see what I've done there. All areas though are deep enough to, well, you can't really see down the side, but they're all deep enough to plant in, so we're all good. Even the foreground, I can actually put some hair grass pieces in there. It'll look good, and it will spread on its own then right into the foreground, like right up to the front. But just for some added sort of nutrition in this back area, I'm going to put some of API's root tabs in, so there's some extra nutrition, just long lasting. Okay, so I think that looks great. Now it's time to add some wood, because that's just a little bit lame on its own, isn't it? Remember, when placing wood, you need to leave a gap in the background to be able to plant in, so don't push your wood right to the back. It wants to be about halfway on top of the rocks, preferably. Okay, I'm not going to pretend to you guys that I didn't sit there and play around with that for ages. It looked a lot smoother than it was, but basically what we've got here is like a cool sweep and then a sort of loop back. I just use the wood shape and let it sort of escape itself, if you like. But what it does mean is we're going to have 2 focal points, I can see anyway. I can see there being a smaller focal point there and a larger focal point in this whole area. I think that's how it will work best. So I'll probably put some sort of Java fern or special piece in there and above, so it looks like one big piece, but it won't be. It'll be just 2 separate pieces. But yeah, strong hardscape. We've got a little bit of wood coming out the top as well. That's always nice to do. It just gives it a little bit more sort of dynamicness or something. I don't know. But what we need to do now is make sure that that wood is glued down. So I'm going to use some, on small scapes like this, you can just use super glue and just touch up little points, like points of contact, and that should lock it down. With bigger bits of wood, you need a bit more, you know, heavy duty than that, but this should be fine. And remember, this is brand new Redmore root, so it will get that horrible white sliminess to it for like a week or so after we set it up, but don't worry, that goes away. It's very normal. Okay, so don't worry about those sort of ugly glue points. We'll let that dry, and when it has, we can attach the moss, or, you know, you won't even see it, to be honest, when the aquarium is full of water, looking fantastic. No one's going to notice those tiny little points, but they are key, because trust me, not only do we want it to stay down and not float when we fill up with water, when we're doing maintenance on the tank, we don't want to be sort of knocking the wood and it floating around everywhere. It just lock everything in place as best as you can at this stage. It's always really, really good to take your time and do that, because I've done it myself where I've not bothered with this stage before and just put some rocks on it, and when you come to maintaining your tank forever, just knocking everything around, it's really annoying. So yeah, take the time and get everything locked down. So that is our hardscape done. Now make sure when you're doing this, you really take your time with it. If you get this bit right, you can't really go wrong with the planting, because even if you've got loads of plants, it looks great, and if you haven't got many, it still looks great because the hardscape's awesome. It actually took way longer than it looks like on film, obviously, for me to come to the point where we're at now. Lots of walking away, coming back to it, taking another look, checking out the angles. But it comes to a point when you've got to just say, okay, let's go. And now is go time. Let's get planting. Click subscribe. Right, we're looking good on the hairgrass front. I've got a little bit of Monte Carlo in there as well, but I want more Monte Carlo in this sort of front gap area. It stays short, you see, and just carpets horizontally rather than shooting it upwards, which the hairgrass will grow taller than it is at the moment. But the problem is with Monte Carlo, I'll show you. Here we go, look, I've got a piece here. If I turn it over gently, you can see like the roots are like really short. And if I plant that into the sand, all it's going to do is, as soon as I fill it up with water, it's just going to float up to the top, and that'll be annoying. So what I like to do is take a stone, like you can see there, place the Monte Carlo on top, and then use some cotton like this, wrap it around it, and tie it on, and then you can just put it straight into the aquarium. So I think that's looking fantastic, and that's enough plants in the foreground for me anyway. I'd like to see it growing a little rather than sort of fully planting it from the start. But next up, we can start putting our background plants in now. First of all, though, we want to mist everything down, because that hairgrass and Monte Carlo will dry out very quickly. It's just a small plant, remember, so it doesn't really hold water. So you've got to keep misting regularly. And that's great, now we can't see, I'll get that wiped off. But the first plant I want to put in the background on this side is Rotala Green. And down here, look, in one of my sort of plant grow out tanks, look at that Rotala Green. Look how vibrant that is in that back corner. So I'm going to use that. It's a good little length as well on that top hill. It'll be somewhere near the surface. I've got some more and some different plants over in this side as well. They've only just been put in. I've only just set this grow out tank up. If you guys have got the space, I really recommend getting a little grow out tank. Basically, you can just plug in all of your sort of baby plants, if you like, or trimmings, and just leave them, just kind of ignore it. There's no fish in there, so you don't generate loads of algae and waste, providing you get your lighting right. And for my lighting, just an LED floodlight, exactly the same as the ones I've got on this tank above it, but it's got quite a big distance to it, but it seems to give just the right amount of light for no algae and just really nice growth. So that's looking pretty cool in my opinion, really detailed. So there's loads and loads going on here, like look at that. I put tons of little dots of moss all over the wood. Once I've filled the tank up, I'm going to trim off all the straggly bits. You want to keep it nice and neat at this stage and it will grow nice and compact in all those areas. But yeah, definitely now is a good time to fill it up, and we can start adding more sort of stems and detail plants in then. Oh yes, how good is that looking? For saying that, I do feel we're missing something in this section. So I think I'm going to put a little bit more of the Ludwigia just on that little spot there, and maybe some Anubias or Bucephalandra on that spot, because it looks a bit like something's been forgot to put there. Right, there we go. I think we're looking awesome, but we need a filter for this. And I have got this insanely cute little nano one. It actually feels like... Oh, I nearly dropped it. It actually feels like decent quality plastic, to be fair. Very cheap. I'll leave a link in the description. So it's got a little chamber at the back here. Well, this isn't a sponsored post or anything, by the way, guys. I just think it's a pretty good product. And I'm going to just put a load of like crushed lava rock in this section. Keep the filtery thing in, and yeah, should be good to go. Alright, looking awesome. So now would be a really good time to add in like some floating plants, but I just want to see how the tank fares with this lighting, because it's not exactly bright. Maybe it does look like that on camera, but you know, you can change the light and stuff with your camera. But to me, it's already at like a really good level where I think it might be perfect without any floating plants. We'll just see how it goes. I might need to add some in at a later date, but I think we're going to be okay with this one, which means we can now add in the Endlers and also some little critters. I'm thinking cherry shrimp as well. I've got some low-grade cherries that I can go in here. Don't want to be mixing them with my proper red. So hang on, let me show you. So in this tank here are my proper bright reds. This is part of the whole sort of shrimp rack system, yeah. But yeah, they're like proper, like painted reds, if you like. They're high grade. And then over here, in this bowl here, I've got a complete sort of mix of all these different colours, and there's a load of low grade reds you can see there. I'm going to put those, I think, into the guppy tank. But before we do any of that, we need to dechlorinate the water and also add beneficial bacteria. I like to use API Quick Start and the API Water Conditioner, obviously, because they sponsor the channel. This post is not sponsored.